Welcome to another episode of OG55 Live. I got Mr. J. Sherer in the house and Mr. Seymour Duck. There he is. There's Mr. Duck. Today we're talking all about Josh D'Amaro, Dana Walden, and Kevin Meyer. There was some news that came out recently about this. We're going to talk about it, but we're also going to take your questions, your comments up next on OG55 Live. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55 Live. Today, I'm joined by two fantastic gentlemen. We got Jay Sherer and Mr. Duck in the house. We are taking your questions, your comments. We're also talking about that Disney CEO race. It seems to be tightening up quite a bit. Before we dive in, Jay, welcome back, sir.
Always good to be here, man. And I'm glad that you, OG hit me up like 45 minutes ago. I was like, hey, do you want to do a show in 45 minutes? I'm like, yes, I do want to do a show in 45 minutes. So thanks for having me, man. It's always good to be present. It's always good to be on a show with Mr. Seymour Duck.
There he is. There he is.
Thank you.
And actually, this is, a show that isn't like super controversial. Usually we have Jay on for like the really controversial stuff. So this is like pretty mild, right?
This is pretty mild. I think this would be pretty, I'll probably make it controversial at some point in time, but until that point in time, it's very mild.
Absolutely. Mr. Jay Sherer, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so the place where you're most likely to find me is How Stories Work with Jay Sherer, which is right here on YouTube, or on the Orange Grove 55 show, either as a guest on one of OG's shows or George's shows, or hosting the Story Geeks podcast, which I did see Superman. So we can do a Superman Story Geeks if you want to. Just let me know.
Yeah, no, I know you saw it. I know George saw it, and I know Jared saw it. It's still on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
So I think you saw it too, right, Seymour?
Yep.
Seymour.
So maybe I'll join you guys as like, because I don't care about spoilers. I'll read like the outside perspective and kind of ask questions, and we can do like a big panel on it. We'll do that very, very soon. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
that'd be very fun. Mr. Seymour Duck, welcome back, sir. Where can everybody find you, sir?
Yeah, glad to be back here and talk about business with you guys. And yeah, you can find me at Mr. Seymour Duck on X.
There he is, Mr. Seymour Duck. And real quick before we dive into the topic at hand, we have Mr. Matthew Murr, a member for 1 full year. Thank you so much, Matthew. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. Matthew's a good dude, and he's been a supporter. He's been a friend of the channel for a really, really long time. He says, stay tuned for the upcoming vid where OG dives into 2 of my largest questions ever. Yes. He emailed me his largest questions ever. I have them, and we're going to do a whole video on them. Matthew Murr, absolutely. Thank you so much for all your support, brother. All right, let's dive right in. This is courtesy of our friend Zach from Boardwalk Times on Threads, because I don't do X anymore. So we're doing Threads. Former Disney exec Kevin Meyer predicts the next CEO of Disney. Quote, and this is courtesy of Yahoo Finance, actually. But it says, quote, I think it will come from internal. I just expect that it will, and I think it will be one of, Dana Walden or Josh D'Amaro. That's likely. It seems like, to me, one of those two. Mr. Jay Sherer, we've kind of talked about this privately and all that, and interesting stuff, right? I mean, I guess not a huge shock, but this guy's pretty connected. I know I don't know if he still is or was a consultant for Disney, as well as Tom Staggs. They announced that a couple years ago. I think they're still involved. So he's on the inside, and he's saying it's going to be internal, and it's going to be one of these two. And not too shocking. So it seems like this is tracking. What do you think?
Yeah, people like Kevin are insiders to those kinds of decisions because they've been thought about as a potential CEO candidate in the past, and therefore they know the other people. It's not like this is like you got to think about this in terms of like, it's not like you're hiring a random person to run your digital marketing, SEO or something. It's a small group of people who they're looking at to potentially replace Bob Iger. And so I think that he probably has way more insight into what is going on here than most of the people that are like us, who are like, interested in the decision, but not aware of like what's going on with the conversations. So I think it's highly likely that he's right on with what he's talking about here.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I don't know, and I'm an outsider, obviously. Despite the rumors, I have no special access. No, I'm not privy to. I'm not privy to any like insider information.
Well, you got Mr. Webber soon.
Oh, that's true. We do have Mr. Webber. But by the way, everyone, if you haven't seen the last live, Mr. Webber made a big announcement on the last live. Check that out. He's actually going to be working for the Walt Disney Company at the Disneyland Resort very, very soon. So big congratulations and shout out to Mr. Webber. But I mean, from the outside looking in, it's looking like, and look, I'm not a huge Josh fan. I like him. I think as a person, I think he seems like a really chill dude. Would love to have a beer with this guy, kind of shoot the shit, and he seems like a really fun guy. But I said it many times, I'm not trying to date him though. so I don't really, that doesn't really matter to me so much. I care how he's going to run the company. And I feel like we kind of need a studio person in here. And I think Dana would be better served, because right now studio, with all the streaming stuff and all that other stuff, it's really turbulent. I still feel like we need someone in there that knows the industry. And I feel Josh will learn the industry, but learning the industry and like being entrenched in it like Dana has been are two totally different things. And to have that theme park guy go in there and try to learn as he goes at a time like this is kind of risky for Disney. Disney, in my opinion, and a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but I think it's a studio, not a theme park company. It's a studio that also has theme parks, but the core of that flywheel is everything that's produced at the studio. You know what I'm saying? But Mr. Duck, what do you think, brother?
I'm conflicted because I was hoping external candidate, but I know that was not going to happen. And unfortunately, I wanted Kevin and Tom to be the external candidates, and I know that was not going to happen. But yeah, I'm conflicted because you're right. I think we need a studio person to run it, because I don't want another Bob Chapek 2.0. We're running the company and not understanding the media side a lot. And you need to make friends in the media. And I remember D23 with just with Bob Chapek introducing some of the actors. People were booing. He felt very awkward. And that's not a CEO I want in a company that's running the, Disney. I want someone who's confident. And an example of this was like in the Emmys, Shogun won, I think for best pick, I think it was something about best picture for drama, I think. And the director of that show was like, "Thank you, Dana Walden, for giving us a chance. Thank you for working with us and making this a reality." And, people on that show were thanking Dana Walden. And I don't think I'm going to get that with Josh, unfortunately, on the media side. But he does bring in a lot of good things for the experience. And Josh, and I think with the Epic Games collaboration is what's pushing him to the top of the list for the CEO now. And with the Abu Dhabi going park, it's pushing him in the top. So, I would not be opposed if they did a co-CEO and get the best of both worlds, because I don't think one could do without the other.
That's a great point, Seymour. I'm glad you brought up the digital landscape, with the Epic Games, right? Because that's kind of like, I kind of see that Epic Game thing as sort of like that transition, that segue from experiences in the real world to, it's like kind of like that weird in between from experiences like the theme parks and studio. It's right in between there where like, it's not quite theme park, but it's not quite studio. It's kind of right there. And if he's more involved in that now, it kind of gives him a little bit more corporate cachet, so to speak, or corporate capital to sort of like, hey, look, I'm kind of inching my way over now into the studio realm a little bit, right? And look, to be fair to Josh, I really want to be fair. I don't want to just completely crap on him, because I do think he does have good qualities. He has that smooth thing about him. Like this guy, he can walk into a room. He's gonna get along great with Meryl Streep and all the Hollywood people. Like this guy has that kind of it factor. He definitely won't be Chapek in that regard. That's a for sure. But I don't know. I mean, we're going to see though how he handles it, because even the park stuff. I mean, we have a lot of park fans here. I mean, have you been happy, everybody at home, with how he's run the parks? I mean, I know lately he's been investing, but is that due to kind of like necessity because he's running for this job? Like, how did he do before this though? Like, I didn't see a whole lot of investment. There was a lot of stuff where, like, before the D23 stuff, there wasn't really much there. You know what I'm saying? So now, Jay, you mentioned that you kind of privately you were saying like you disappointed, like you want them to do a little bit more, I guess, riskier move or more outside the box move. You want to elaborate on that? Because I think you're right on that. I would agree with you.
So let's have this conversation between the three of us and everybody out there in the chat. I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well. What are the criteria? Let's say we're the board of directors, right? What are the criteria and the skill sets that we are looking for in order to make this decision? Because we have to take a step back and we have to go, okay, look, the way that this choice gets made is that they say, here's a list of things that we feel like that this CEO/president needs to be good at, right? And then how do we make a decision based on what those things are? Well, we can talk about those. So let's talk about those things. What are the things, OG, that you think that the CEO and the president of Disney needs to bring to the table?
Okay, so for me personally, my ideal CEO, I think you do need, and I know this sounds superficial, but I think for Disney, I think you need it. I think you do need a charismatic, like consumer-facing entity, right? I think Michael Eisner was perfect when it came to that. I think for Disney, you need that. You're not running an insurance company. You're not running, like a Dr. Pepper or something. This is Disney. So you do need someone that can get out there in front of the fans and kind of be the face of the company. So that's number one. Number two, you need a CEO that's going to respect the past. Now, this is where it gets rough. This is where it's really hard. You need someone who's going to respect Disney's history, but not be chained to it. And that's important because you want to respect the past, but you don't want to be hindered. See, this is the thing. Before Michael Eisner came in, the mantra was, what would Walt do? Now, on paper, that sounds fantastic. What would Walt do? Who's going to disagree with that? But you saw the product after he died, the creativity, it fell really flat. It wasn't until Michael Eisner came in there and was like, you know what? Let's do bold things. It was still Disney. Lion King was still Disney. Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, they were still very Disney, but they were riskier endeavors. It wasn't safe. It wasn't like they were trying to keep going back to the past, right? They moved forward. So you need an executive who has that kind of intelligence, that creative intelligence and business intelligence to kind of move the company forward, but yet not to the point where it's like that it disrupts the brand, you know what I'm saying? Which is a very delicate tightrope, you know? So you need a risk taker with that. So those are my two criteria kind of with the CEO, which is a tough thing to find. I think, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me in the comments because I know there's a lot of Bob Iger hate, but Bob Iger kind of has done that, right? I actually just had this discussion with my mom, actually, oddly enough. She's like, do you think Marvel should be part of Disney? I don't. And I'm like, no, I think Marvel should absolutely be part of Disney. She's like, well, all that superhero stuff, that doesn't look like Disney to me. I'm like, you know what? I disagree. I told her the heroes of the past, when the boomers were growing up in that Funicello era, John Wayne, Davy Crockett, these were the heroes of those days. Well, okay, those days are long gone now. The new heroes kids look up to are Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther. It's not the same thing, but it kind of is the same idea, right? And Bob Iger kind of recognized that, and that was kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, where you're kind of maintaining that Disney essence, but yet you're moving it forward. That's the kind of stuff that you kind of need here. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me in the chat because that's a controversial one with the Marvel stuff, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. But go ahead, Jay. What do you think, brother?
Well, before I get to mine, I want to hear Seymour. Seymour, what are some of your things that you say, like, these are the things I would look for in a CEO candidate, president candidate? And by the way, in the chat, give us what you think, too. I want to hear what you think in the chat.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Seymour.
Basically everything OG said, he took the words out of my mouth, but I do want a CEO who has a good track record, right? And You know, in the past, Josh didn't have the best track record, and he doesn't have much with the media side, and that's what I'm a little bit scared of. Right? When I know let's take out the the politics out of it. Dana Walden has the track record from all the way to Fox on all through the media side, and that's really crucial to the point for the company. Having that track record, working in the business already, you already made friends within Hollywood. You already know people all over Hollywood, and apparently she was the favorite for Bob Iger. They bought Fox, and she's already now in the lead, and she's doing big changes. That's one of the things I like that OG said. A CEO can make big changes. She's doing the big changes in the media side, and I feel like if you had Josh doing the media side, I don't think those changes would be happening.
Yeah.
In the studio side, right? She's doing really well with Hulu and the general entertainment side, and that's the part that's execution is doing really well. And I don't want that to go away. The future for Disney has been shaping up to be a bigger company, a company that's entertainment for all, and not just like OG was saying. It's Marvel, really Disney. We're beyond that now. We're to the point where we have Hulu, we have Aliens, we have Planet of the Apes, we have Avatar. That's now Disney. But before that wasn't Disney. And I don't believe, we need a CEO who can make big changes with those IPs, with those creators and talents. And unfortunately, I don't think Josh can do that in that part. And like I said, you need that history of knowledge. And I get that with Dana Walden, especially because she was in Fox. She did Fox stuff, and the IPs that Disney bought was from Fox. So it's just the next part. But like I said, with the co-CEO, I think you get the best of both worlds if you had co-CEOs. But the track record is the most important thing, the knowledge of it. And Dana Walden might not have the track record for the parks, though, right? That's why I think this co-CEO is great, because Josh was like basically born into Disney, right? He was there from the beginning, right? From when he got hired. Dana Walden just a few years ago just got in, right? So she doesn't know the Disney culture as much as Josh did.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So he's in great, he's deep within the company's DNA. I'm saying with Josh, so he understands that a little bit more than Dana. But then, does that make you not want to take a little bit more risk because of that? You want the company to be safe? Things that, we're here to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. What say you, Jay?
So I think you guys are right on. So I'm going to just reiterate what's already been said. Okay. So Seymour brought this up, understanding Disney IP, and the new Disney IP that they have since they bought Fox and all the other properties we've been talking about now, Pixar and Marvel and all of them. Charismatic, public facing. So I agree with both of those so far, 100%. Respect history, but are not chained to it. I have another way of saying that I totally agree with you on that one, OG. A good track record, I think, is really critical as well. Seymour. And what's interesting about the two candidates coming out of Disney is that their track record is pretty limited in terms of what it's focused around, right? I think one of the things that people mistake when they ask the question of who should be Disney CEO, they tend to think to themselves, and this is why I'm asking the question of what should they be skilled at, because a lot of people will, and they'll joke around, and I've joked around to say this too, like, oh, we should just put OG in the Italiano and ahead of that, and that's funny, and the reason I say that is because I really like the way that George and OG break down Disney and the way they talk about Disney, but it is highly likely that neither one of them are qualified to actually run a multinational company 100%. That has to deal with all of these things. So you can't just say, like, I'll just pull someone off the Pirates of the Caribbean ride because I really like them and they'll just run the organization. Like, that's not how organizations work. It's the reason why CEO pay is so drastically different from front end pay. There are some economic factors that make that considerably worse. But one of the main reasons for that is because of what Seymour is saying. Track record actually matters, because think of all of the money that goes into the Disney organization and how that money gets distributed to investors. If you don't make the investors happy, you're gone. Like, it's just very, very simple equation there. So a track record is really important. So here's the things that I would add to the whole list. Okay, so I would say, and this is kind of restating the respecting history but not chained to it. I think the person has to have a very clear vision, and let me unequivocally say it cannot be Robert Iger's vision. Robert Iger is done. Like, the guy is gone. I, by the way, am a Robert Iger fan. I like Bob Iger. I think he was great for the Walt Disney Company. To suggest that someone could be, oh, I'm just going to take over whatever Iger's vision was and make that my vision is a no-go in my mind. It's not risky enough. It doesn't take into account what Iger was good at, and that not likely being the future of the organization. It's not like the Disney can go, oh yeah, we'll just keep buying up more IP, and that's going to be our game plan for the next 10 years. That will not work. In fact, I would not be surprised if they had to sell off some of the IP in order to make a new game plan work.
100%.
So you cannot give me we need to stay on the Bob Iger train. You got to get off the Bob Iger train. And I also have a couple more here that I think I would add. One of them is understanding and adapting to the new entertainment environment. The way that entertainment works in the modern day is nothing like it worked 10 years ago. It has changed drastically. The theater experience was highly profitable for Disney. It's still profitable for Disney, but not in the same way that it was 10 years ago. It's not as reliable either. So when you have to understand how does streaming work, how does linear work, even though linear is going out of business, how do parks work, how do Disney Cruise Line work, how do consumer business and consumer goods sales work, how does gaming work, how does the future of VR, I mean, the complexity of the marketplace has never been more. You got AI on the horizon of what AI is going to do, so you need to be able to understand and adapt to the changing entertainment environment in a way that I don't even think Bob Iger could right now. Because what would Iger do in this scenario? He'd try to buy companies up to try and say, if someone's doing that really well, I'll buy it up. I don't think you can do that for the next 10 years. I don't think it's going to work. So they're going to need to figure that out on their own. And the final thing I would say, and this is something that I think is the one area where I would ding Bob Iger just slightly. I still think he's good at it, but I don't think he's great at it, and I think the next Disney CEO needs to be great at it. They need to understand the experience of the customer and how they're going to provide value to the customer for what the customer is looking for across all of the different engagements. So it's not enough to say I'm going to buy Marvel because people seem to like Marvel movies. You need to figure out, how do I provide value without buying any IP? And I think that that's a very difficult thing to do in the modern day. It's very difficult to predict consumer demand. Consumer demand is no longer 4-quadrant. Consumer demand is almost gone. It's not gone because we still have movies that are 4-quadrant, experiences that are 4-quadrant. But we like things to be customized a lot more to us and to what we like, and we don't like if I go to the parks and I go like, I feel like I'm getting the Seymour Duck experience, but I wanted the Jay Sherer experience. Like, that's like a contention that I now have, right? Which I didn't have 10 years ago. I just took it for what it was, or I maybe say 20 years ago. So I think we're all on the same page with what the CEO needs to be good at. I personally was more excited about an external candidate because I think that now, what has been said in the chat and what has been said from Seymour, I think is true, that maybe you can get what you need from Josh tomorrow and from Dana Walden both, and you have a co-CEO situation. But the thing that I'm worried about is I don't think either of them have any experience with gaming. I don't know that either of them have any experience with, I mean, Dana Walden brings like studio and linear. Okay, great. But does she bring like box office? That's a little bit more difficult to define. What does it look like? So Josh tomorrow brings the parks experience, but what about like, and he has the cruise line experience. I guess I'll give him that too. But I'm a little bit concerned that somebody who isn't looking forward to the new experiences that need to be worked into the equation. And that's where I feel like it's almost like you're in the modern day, almost all corporations need to function like a startup. Like, we don't know what works anymore. So we got to keep testing and learning from things really, really fast. And I don't see that happening from either of those two people. I don't know them that well, and I really respect them. I mean, one of the commenters had said, here's me getting controversial, by the way. one of the commenters had said that that Dana Walden is too woke.
Oh, I'm glad you brought this up because I want to talk about this.
Yeah, and Gridley, I would just tell you, do a little bit more research because Dana Walden worked for Rupert Murdoch, who is like the least woke person in entertainment, right? And she's talked about that publicly before because I was concerned about the same thing, Gridley. I was thinking to myself, like, I don't know, man. They need to moderate, and she's best friends with Kamala Harris, and I'm not sure where this, well, but I did a little bit of research, and I did the research with our friend Alia. Shout out to Alia. I feel like I give a shout out to Alia every show I do.
Oh, she's amazing. We love her so much.
Yeah, she's the best. And what I found was I found her talking about working with Rupert Murdoch and heard her talking about the fact that it was delivering solid content that people love, not trying to adhere to a value system that she has or doesn't have. And so I think that for me personally, I don't think that's a criticism that I can stick to her because I think she's adapted to that, and there's evidence of her adapting to it. She ran the show Homeland, which is for sure not woke. So and she has created content that appeals to middle America. Middle America, for the majority of middle America, they're not woke. So I'll stop talking at this point. But to me, I'm concerned about the two choices on the table. But I do think if you're going to make an internal hire, I just feel like they need to be able to say to the board of directors, I loved Bob Iger's vision, but I have a new one. And because look, Eisner did the same thing. All the best leaders of Disney over the years have done that and said, sorry, we're breaking from this tradition. All of the people who get replaced pretty fast just tried to do what the last person did. And that doesn't work for Disney.
No, 100%, Jay. You got to shake it up a little bit. You have to. And it was funny because I'm glad you brought that up because when Bob Iger came in, people thought, oh, he's going to be a Bob Iger yes man. Yeah. And he came in and he was, I'm sorry. When Bob Iger came in, people said he was going to be an Eisner yes man and kind of a clone. And he was smart enough not to be that.
100%.
To his benefit, because when he came in and he shook, because he did a lot of things that Michael Eisner wouldn't have done. Actually, I remember Michael Eisner had his own talk show. This is years ago on CNBC. And this was like right after he handed it over to Bob.
Yeah.
And he actually had Iger on the show.
No way.
And they talked about the Pixar purchase. This is how long ago this was, like almost 20 years ago now, right? but Iger said, I respectfully disagree. I wouldn't have bought Pixar. I think you overpaid for it, Bob. You know what I'm saying?
No way.
Yeah, so they didn't even agree with that, right? Yeah. And because even Eisner, he was like, no, he kind of believed more in Disney animation in a way where he was like, no, I believe Disney can do what Pixar does. We don't need Pixar. Because remember, it was getting a little tense there with Pixar and Disney. Yeah. Because it wasn't part of the company yet. But Iger came in and he was like, no, you know what? I was president under Michael Eisner, but I'm not going to be Eisner 2.0. And that was smart. In terms of Walden, Gridley, yeah, that's kind of the thing out there. And I do believe politically, yeah, she definitely votes Democrat. I'm positive. I'm positive of that. You know what I'm saying? She's friends with Kamala, the whole thing. But Jay is right, though. She worked very closely with Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is not woke. And Rupert Murdoch has said nothing but great things about her. I mean, he really respects Dana Walden. So she has, like, for me personally, and Gridley, your mileage may vary. For me personally, I don't really care what their politics are as long as it doesn't interfere with them doing their job. Yeah. So whether she's woke or whether she's super conservative, I don't really care as long as she knows the company and how to run it. And that's more important to me. And she has shown that she's willing to put that aside to do a good job. And one last thing, and I'll turn it over to Seymour. I agree with you again, Jay, that I think we need something. I think we need something a little bit more ballsy, a co-CEO thing, something like that would be way more exciting. To do the safe thing and be like, yeah, the parks guy is going to be the CEO now. It's like, come on, didn't we do that the last time?
Yeah.
Like, we need something like going to energize Wall Street, that's going to energize the fans, and something bold and different, I think, so we'll see. What say you, Mr. Duck?
Yeah, I agree with the Dana Walden take. I think last time we discussed about Dana Walden, I was talking about how politics did not interfere with her job at Fox, right? We're working with Rupert Murdoch. She delivered what she needed to do, and she left her politics at home. All right, and Fox is not a left-leaning network, right? So it's like that's the type of CEO you need, right? Someone who doesn't put in their politics, leaves that at home, and focuses on what needs to be done as a CEO for the company. But unfortunately, I wanted an external CEO. I wanted someone to push, right, to be ballsy, right? Like I had ideas like perhaps the CEO of Hasbro or Mattel or the ex-president of Nintendo, Reggie Fils-Aimé. Like I had all these ideas where they can push it because they're like innovating, where they had old technology, like especially Nintendo, right? And they kept innovating and bringing out new ideas. And I thought that would be perfect if you had like Reggie Fils-Aimé become the CEO of Disney, and then also put in the gaming aspect because he had history of it, and then also because you're not integrated within the company, so you're not as too safe. And that's what I'm kind of scared with Josh, because you're too safe because you were there. He was there for a long time, and he's integrated with the DNA, like I mentioned before. And because of that, you might not want to change things a lot. And you're getting a lot, and he's getting a lot of pushback right now just for changing things, just little things. And imagine if you did something big that would try to, push forward for the company in the future. He might get pushed back again, and you need CEOs who can, get through that. And I'm hoping, if one of them were picked, that Dana or Josh, they can get through that and they can do ballsy decisions, as an external CEO would have done. And that's what gives me a little bit of hope with Dana Walden, because she wasn't with that Disney so long. She was with Fox before. It was only like 2019 they bought Fox, so it was only like 6 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago that they bought Fox. But she can bring ideas that she had in the past with Fox and bring in the company, like I mentioned before. But again, she's at the media side, not the park side. So co-CEO, I'm just going to advocate co-CEO. If I'm not going to get my external CEO, Reggie Fils-Aimé, I'll advocate for co-CEO. No, if I'm not going to get Tom or Kevin, at least get co-CEO. It would have been nice if you got Tom and Kevin, though.
Yeah, it would. I think those guys are great. I think what happened with Staggs and even Meyer, to be honest with you, was such a travesty. I mean, I think those guys. I mean, really, Iger's entire legacy was built on the back of what Kevin Meyer did. I mean, Kevin Meyer was the acquisition guy. And that's all of Bob Iger's legacy was acquisitions. That's why I was shocked when they announced Bob Chapek. I was like, how did you pick Chapek? It was Meyer who was your right-hand man during all these big acquisitions, and you choose Chapek? Yeah. And that was bizarre to me.
And he left the company when he's like, oh, I'm not CEO. Okay, I'll leave then. Because he thought it was going to be CEO. Because they kept doing all these like things that he thought they were training him to become the CEO, but then it didn't happen.
A couple things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Seymour.
I was just gonna say, and that's one thing you don't want to happen is have Dana Walden leave if she's not CEO.
Yeah, and I think two things came up as you guys were talking that I wanted to address really quick too. To Gridley's point, because I don't think that point is. I think that point is more nuanced, right? I did have a lot of concern about Dana Walden taking over when we were closer to the election, because I think that because of the way that Disney was politicized, largely because of the Florida situation and how what's the governor of Florida's name?
DeSantis.
Thank you. And DeSantis went after Disney. I do think that a quick switch to saying, oh, it's Dana Walden and we're going to announce that widely, it would have been like, oh, now we're just contentious with the government and we're just going to just do that for the next 4 years or whatever. I think that would have been a mistake. I think we're far enough removed from that situation now that it's not really on anybody's radar about what's going on with Dana. I know Dana's friends with Kamala. I know that was an issue, but the election's far enough behind us. I don't think it's as big of a deal. So I do want to say to Gridley, I am sensitive to that fact. I just think I don't think we need to worry about it anymore. You guys going to say, Seymour?
I was going to say Trump was friends with all of them too.
He was.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Although Trump changes his friendships real fast.
Oh yeah, he threw Elon under the bus pretty quick, and now he wants to deport him.
Yeah, I know. The other thing I wanted to comment on, the other thing I think that gets lost in this conversation a lot, and this is where I'm most worried, okay? This is why I brought up the point of saying, and it's just a variation of the points that you guys have brought up, but the focus on customer value, I think, is super important, because I think that Bob Iger was the first president that was corporate to his core. He was not the kind of guy who was like, what do I want to see in theaters? What I want to run around the parks and experience the rides. He is not like that. He is a much more, I'm the corporate visionary. I'm the corporate guy who makes the money. I'm the corporate guy who makes mergers and acquisitions. He appeases Wall Street, and he appeases the private equity, hedge fund money guys way more so than he does the boots on the ground experiencer of the parks, right? He had really good instincts, and he was really good at hiring, and so he was able to make up for some of those areas with people like Josh Tomorrow, who love to be in the parks and love to see what they want to experience. But that was the first time I had seen Disney have such a corporate focused sort of guy. Eisner was not like that. Eisner was like Uncle Eisner, different uncle than Uncle Walt, very different vision, very different. But Eisner was the kind of guy who was like, no, it's the 90s, and I want to do what Walt would never have done, but it's very 90s version of that, right? I'm going to have Pleasure Island. Walt wouldn't have done that, but I'm going to do it, right? So I think that there's certain things that, but he still felt like a guy who was like, no, I want to ride cartoon spin, Roger Rabbit's cartoon. I want to write it. I want to go write it and see if it's as cool as I thought it was in my head. Bob Iger is probably not that guy, right? Like, he's not getting that deep into the weeds. I would like to see somebody who can talk to corporate entities and corporate money and speak to that, but who also has passion to be in the parks and have opinions about, I don't like the way you did this ride. I think we need to for example, I'd love to see somebody come in and go, you know what? I like the Walt animatronic, but I don't love the Walt animatronic. Let's fix that tomorrow, right? Like, I want to see somebody who's that. Bob Iger does not. Bob Iger doesn't give a shit about the Walt animatronic. He just wants. He's more of a money guy who's going to be looking at, hey, what are my people telling me? So I think that that's one thing that I would like to see is I'll give you a person who is controversial, had a lot of problems, had to leave the company. If you had told me that they were going to take Ed Catmull is not the problem, but if you took Ed Catmull and John Lasseter has that quality of like the creativity and what am I doing corporately. You put two guys together like that, Ed Catmull, who has a little bit more business sense, and Lasseter, who has a little bit more boots on the ground, what do people want kind of sense. You tie those kind of two perspectives together, I think you get a pretty solid Disney CEO. So I think we're all on the same page, but like we have a list, and this list is not going to be that much different for Disney than it was for us, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Now, Todd, this is an interesting question from Todd. Does Tomorrow have the courage to do anything big? Now, this is interesting. While I do feel Tomorrow would be a safe choice overall, we're picking the theme park guy again. I will give Tomorrow a little bit of credit. On his watch, they are draining and demolishing the rivers of America at the Magic Kingdom. He's putting his on the table. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a big move. All criticisms of Josh aside, that is a big move, Todd. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and he is getting a lot of heat for that. So now, again, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming he plays a big part in that decision because he runs experiences. I think probably, Bob Iger probably does as well. But I mean, on his watch, I will also say this Abu Dhabi thing is a big move. I mean, to put a Disney park, that part of the world, kind of risky, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, so he has made some big moves lately. What do you think about that, Seymour? I mean, I know he feels kind of like the safe choice, and I feel in a lot of ways he is, but he has done some pretty big stuff, right?
Yes. And I think the Abu Dhabi and the Epic Games is going to be the biggest one for him. And Bob Iger said the Epic Games collaboration will be a pinnacle thing for Disney in the future. And it, like you mentioned, it's like almost like an in-between from like, you want to go a little bit further from streaming, but you don't want to go to the parks. It's a little bit too expensive, or, you want everyone to experience Disney. You have it in between. Right. And almost like a metaverse, but that's an old term that nobody uses anymore. But because Bob Chapek was talking about the metaverse. It's coming, and I think this is what was coming. But yes, and you have Disney parks streaming and everything all integrated in one, and you can just experience Disney. Have either like VR goggles or just have it like Fortnite and just run it and play. And I think that's one ballsy thing that he can do. If he can pull that out of the park, that will change Disney forever. Because I don't think any other company, maybe besides Nintendo, be able to pull that off, because they don't have the IPs or they don't have the IPs to pull it off, right? You get Universal, I don't think they would work. If you do it to Warner Brothers, maybe, I don't know. I think Disney's the only one that's be able to pull it off at all the IPs they have, right? With the streaming and all that all together and the parks, I think that would be where Josh can really excel. But he doesn't have gaming experience. This is why I wanted a CEO. But Bob Iger said in an interview that Epic Games, and they own I think 11% now of the company, or 9. I forget which one it was. It keeps changing on Wikipedia, but they own a significant amount of Epic Games, and it's not just the gaming stuff. That the Epic Games also helps with the engine and stuff to produce content for animation too, right? So if they wanted to use their technology in future, Pixar movies or live action movies, they can with CGI and stuff. So, you need someone also, a CEO, who can do that. But yeah, Epic. I think the Epic Games. I know I've said it many times before, but I think he can push that. And if Abu Dhabi works out for him as well, right? Maybe we'll get another park somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and here, go ahead, Jay. Do you make a point?
I was going to comment on that same question. My only worry, my only pushback, my counterpoint to you guys' points, and I think I'm a little bit more on Seymour's team here than yours, OG, is that I feel like the question is, if you think back to what Walt and Eisner were doing, right? And I'm going to use, so let's just take Walt, Eisner, and Iger, and we'll take those three people and how their vision changed Disney fundamentally as a company, right? Walt's was always super creative in terms of entering new markets or bringing technology that did not exist to a marketplace. For example, animation. The thing that he started out with, that technology barely existed and wasn't being used very well. And Walt said, I think I can monetize this, and tried to monetize it through another company, worked for another company, and then said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own company and do my own animation, and we're going to think that this is going to make it big. And he was right. He was right on the money. Then he said, I'm going to actually innovate in animation, and I'm going to make the camera that has the 3D effect, right? What they call it, the multi-plane camera, right? I'm going to do that. So then he said, I'm going to actually create theme parks, which are not amusement parks and are something completely different. So Walt was very innovative in his time. And that's how he kind of transformed the company. He was also innovative, but not in a way that like Elon Musk is, where Elon Musk is, his public-facing persona is almost like a hacker, where it's kind of like, I'm going to do whatever I want and you guys have to deal with it. Whereas like Walt was like Uncle Walt, where he's like, welcome on in. We just created some technology for you to deal with, right? And you hope you'll love it. I'll buy you a corn dog if you don't. That's what Walt felt like. So then Eisner comes in and Eisner says, great, but all of that stuff was fantastic for the 50s and the 60s. We started struggling a little bit in the 70s, and the 80s were sort of dicey for parks especially. And then Eisner came in and said, you know what? Disney Renaissance, more 2D films, but I'm also going to transform the way that we even think about it. There's going to be more TV properties in the Disney afternoon. I'm going to change the parks so that they're much more adult and kid focused at the same time, so we can attract more families. He very much modernized a lot of what was not working at Disney. He modernized it so it did work. Yeah. And then when we got Bob Iger said, I have a very modern park. What I need is, if I want to make more money, I need to bring in IP. So I'm just going to start buying more stuff, because then I can make more things in the kind of the similar ways that Eisner was doing. So I think that if you tell me like, okay, if we're just going to change a portion of the parks, I'm like, that is like not super innovative, right? You're not saying I'm going to create Pleasure Island. You're saying I'm just going to transform it so that it's Cars instead of this other thing. So now to Seymour's point, saying we're going to go buy a large portion of Epic Games, and like that's going to be a new revenue channel for us. That's where I go, that is actually very innovative. That is not something that Disney has ever done super well. It's not something that they've dove headfirst into in any way, shape, or form. That's an area where I could see, but like I want to hear whoever it is, I want to hear them talking about AI, how they're going to utilize AI. I want to hear them talking about how they're going to react to a populace that will probably get very tired of digital experiences. So they'll say, yes, I love my Epic Games experience, but what I really want is to put my phone down and be in a real life environment. And maybe the animatronics have AI uploaded into them and they're just conversing with me or something. There's going to be different experiences that people want that like Iger wouldn't be able to deliver in the modern day, right? Like he's not going to be able to just acquire his way out of it. So we need a new vision. Is Josh going to be radical enough? I would say, given what we've seen, my answer is a very tepid maybe.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, I'm not sure.
No, 100%, 100%. Now, Gridley, Gridley, by the way, I really want to thank you. You are bringing up some great points here. I don't agree with Gridley on everything, but this is an interesting comment, and I really like what he's saying here, or she. I'm not sure he or she, Gridley, but Iger lacked the creative common sense to not realize Zegler's Snow White was junk. I'm worried that too many political liberals in Disney are not much better. Now, I'm going to agree, but also push back a little bit, Gridley. We have to remember, Iger was also CEO pre-COVID, and they were dropping some bangers pre-COVID. I mean, if you look at like, for example, Gridley, the theme park space, look what they did. Look what he spearheaded for, and you mentioned it earlier, Gridley, but for DCA with Cars Land and World of Color and Buena Vista Street, he was running the company then. So I could point to that and go, well, I mean, he had the creative chops to green light that. We saw, I mean, an incredible success with Marvel, like 20 something movies that ended in Endgame. He was CEO for that. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot there, movie wise, studio wise, and park wise, that were creative and financial and even cultural successes. So I think it's kind of unfair to say, well, he lacks the common sense, because that whole first term before Chapek, he was dropping bangers, you know. Now, after COVID, I think he can get a little bit of a pass, a little bit. I think that there was some major flubs from Bob Iger, and I'll get to that in a second. But we have to remember there was a Chapek era in there, which was Bob Iger's fault. So I'm gonna blame him for that, because he passed it over to Chapek in like the worst way possible. But that was also part of the Snow White thing. And also just, I think that affected the creativity. It affected even Marvel and Star Wars and stuff like that. So yeah, I think after COVID, I do think the creativity took a hit. But I can't go as far as to say, Gridley, that was Iger lacking creative common sense. Because when you look pre-COVID, he didn't have any issues. You know what I'm saying? So I think, look, even Michael Eisner, I can take Michael Eisner's first 10 years and go, look at Indiana Jones, Disney Afternoon, the Disney Renaissance. This guy was dropping heat, okay? But then look, early 2000s, he was dropping stuff that was flopping at the box office, Chicken Little, you know, DCA 1.0. So, you know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of nuance here, but I'm curious, Jay, and then I'll go to Seymour. What are your thoughts on what he's saying? Because I think Gridley makes an interesting point. I really like talking about this.
Yeah, I think, and we've broken down I've talked about this before. I think that the Disney culture got a little bit away from Iger in many regards without him actually realizing it. And it was because of the cultural break. Here's what Disney needs. Let me just tell you what I think Disney needs to do. And let me tell you what I think Bob Iger's real worst decision he's ever made was. It wasn't Snow White, although I do think Snow White was bad. There's a worse one that he made that I want to that we can talk about because it's relevant to this conversation. So I think that the country is as divided as it's ever been. And the problem with that is that if anything starts to lean one way perspective-wise or perception-wise in the audience, it's like, oh, cool, Disney's woke with me. Oh wait, no, Disney's woke. I hate it. And now you've you've allowed for yourself to be a part of the division as opposed to bringing people together for inclusion. And that is something that Disney needs, the new Disney CEO needs to account for. You cannot choose one of the groups. You don't have that luxury, because as soon as you choose one of those groups, you cut your audience in half. You have to say, how do we meet the needs of everybody, and not get overly political in the way that we do that? It's a challenge. It's a big, big challenge. So I do think that Disney, I mean, Bob Iger admitted it. He said, we've become too politically motivated and we need to moderate our content. So even Iger recognizes that. I just don't know that I think that what he did was the people he put in place started to go down a certain path, which was culturally relevant. And then a large portion of the culture said, we don't like that path. And now then it's like, okay, well, now we need to adjust to it because it's kind of getting out of our hands. But if we get into what was the worst decision that Bob Iger has ever made, it was putting Bob Chapek in charge after he left, right? So if you want to go back and look at Iger's legacy and where Iger's legacy has slipped the worst, and now I'm gonna criticize Iger in two different ways here. I don't think Iger ever actually gave up the reins, and that was the biggest problem, because what he said was, "Oh, Chapek, what you cannot do if you're giving the company up to another leader, you cannot try and stick with that company and criticize whatever the new leader is trying to accomplish, to the point where you still have an office in the building where you're the chairman and you're like, oh no, I had the other guy may actually not be the one that's running the company. And now I can go complain to Bob Iger about the fact that the guy he set in charge shouldn't be set in charge. And now Bob Iger can come back in and take over again. That is not the way to transition a company. Bob Iger has to be okay that anybody who takes over will not follow in his vision. They should not follow in his vision. We've all said that. The chat knows that that's the case. If he does that again, that is on Bob Iger for Disney not working. It's on him. He has to give it up.
He has to, and you have to evolve. If even with my little channel, right? If I use the same mindset in 2025 that I had when I created the channel in 2016, that would not be good. No. You have to evolve. You have to change. You got to have new approaches, new stuff. So what Bob Iger did when he came in 20 years ago worked perfect for that era and that time. That's exactly what Disney needed. But it doesn't work now. We need a new vision, just like we did right when he started. So fantastic points, Jay. What are your thoughts, Seymour?
I find it very ironic. Before 2020, nobody was like bashing Bob Iger. Yeah. Nobody was saying Disney is woke, right? He was working for the company for 15 years after he was like, Disney bought out ABC, right? A little bit, no, he was CEO for 15 years, but yeah, he was working within the company for longer. Mm-hmm. And yeah, nobody was saying anything bad. Actually, it got to a point where people wanted him to be president. Right? Yeah. And it's funny.
Well, I was one of them, by the way. I like Bob Iger a lot. I'm sorry, Seymour, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to put that out there. I think Bob Iger is a pretty cool guy, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I actually thought he was going to be, run for president, but it never happened. But then Bob Chapek came in, right? And then that's where all the disasters came in with Disney. And then people said, "Oh, we want Bob Iger back." And we got Bob Iger back. Now it's like, oh no, he's a disaster too. And it's like, you got what you wanted and you didn't like it. And it's like, and I think a lot of the times, because we're so integrated with Disney now, back before then, I wasn't paying attention to the politics of Disney or what was happening with Disney when Bob Iger was running. I was just watching the movies, and a person who didn't know, right? Normies. Now I'm so integrated with it. I see everything around me, but it's like, do people actually care? Like the normies, the people in the middle, do they really care? With the CEOs that we talk about now, Bob Iger doing it, do they even know he's CEO of Disney? Some people don't even know who the CEO of Disney is. And I feel like, the things we hear sometimes, it's the minority that, oh, people hate Bob Iger, this and that. And I find it funny because when you're on top and everything's going well, nobody wants to say anything. But now when things go bad, oh, it was a disaster from the beginning. Was it really? Because he's been there for 20 years.
Yeah, that's the fair points all around. But we got Tones Poppy from Bad Thoughts Studio. Tones Poppy says here, do you think it's necessary? This is a great question, Tones. I love this. Do you think it's necessary for the one taking over needing to have experience in every aspect of Disney. Now, that's interesting, Tones. I would say no. I don't think you need to have experience in everything. For example, Michael Eisner came in with Frank Wells, and these guys came from Warner Brothers and Paramount. They had zero theme park experience, and yet they came in and they crushed it with a lot of the theme park stuff. But here's the thing. There are some things I do think you need experience. Like I am uneasy about someone coming in with no studio experience, because Disney, this whole flywheel, the whole nucleus, the whole center of the flywheel is the movie stuff. Like if you don't have the IP machine, the theme parks and everything kind of falls apart, because you need those IP, and more now than ever, really, for stuff to build in your parks, to have on Epic Games. All of it depends on what the studio is creating. So I don't think, Tomes, to answer in short, they need to have their toe in everything. But I do think you need a solid footing, to keep it with the toe reference. I do think you need a solid footing in studio, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm fine with a person coming in with not as much theme park experience, but I don't know, the studio stuff, though, for me, I think you kind of need that based on what kind of company Disney is. But what say you, Jay?
So great question, Tones. Always good stuff from Tones. Here's my take on this. I worked at an organization that was in the banking industry. Okay, and we had a very niche market in the banking industry, and that had been a little tiny company that was started as a little tiny bank that had grown into a much larger bank that was serving international needs, but biggest in America, but still international needs. And one of the things that I realized is that they put one of the guys who had been highly involved in the founding of the company, they put him under me to work for me. I'm like, this guy actually knows more about all this stuff than I do, but they didn't know where else to put him, right? So they were like, what are we going to do with him? So they put him under me. And what I quickly learned, because we were struggling at the time, and what I quickly learned was that when you lose as a company, and I think this is happening across America right now, because I think private equity has bought out many mom and pop shops and turned them into kind of more corporatized run things. When you do that, when you lose the ability to ask your customers what they need, ask your customers what they want, ask your customers what they respond to and why they're buying from you, I think that's the biggest thing that that happened in my organization. The guy that was working under me knew way more about the people that we were serving than the CEO of the company. Why? Because the CEO of the company had started the organization, knew those customers really, really well because he was interacting with them all the time. But as the company grew, he lost touch with them. He didn't know what their needs were anymore. He was too far away from it. Now, how do you run a giant corporation as big as Disney and still have insight into that? Well, what it means is you have to have really good metrics, you have to have really good data, and you have to put really good people in charge of each one of those areas. And what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to say, okay, what is the end user experience like, and can you describe that to me? So let's just say Bob Iger's in a room right now, and he's going, hey, Tones is up here. Tones asked the question, and we say, you know what, Tones? You're in, dude. What's up, man?
What's up, boys?
So if I'm saying now, if I'm the head of the company, and let's just say that you guys, let's just say you all report to me. You wouldn't. I would report to you. But let's just say, this is for hypothetical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Tones, the objective I have for Disney Cruise Lines is I want growth, but I don't want to lose any of the customer enjoyment that's going on right now. So tell me exactly what the hallmarks of a Disney cruise are, and tell me why those are the hallmarks, and then tell me how you're delivering them, and then tell me how you're going to grow that area of the business. And then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on a Disney cruise and see if he's actually living up to his end of the bargain, right? Then I'm going to turn to OG. I'm going to go, OG, what's your parks experience like? And what are the hallmarks of the parks experience? And what are you trying to bring about in the parks experience? And OG says, these 10 things. I go, great, I'm going to go to the parks, and those 10 things better be present. So I don't need to know every area of the business, because that's just like unfathomable amount of knowledge. But what I do need to do is hire really well, have those people tell me what they're trying to achieve, see if that fits into my vision of what the company should become, and then test them against that knowledge and be like, are you doing your job? Or like you told me you were going to, or are you not? And are you willing to change course if you realize that what you're doing isn't working? And I'm going to support you in doing that. To me, that's where really the CEO position needs to sit, and needs to how they need to interact with what Disney's doing.
Well said. And before we get to Tones, Seymour, your thoughts on his question?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. You don't need to learn everything. A good example of this is Tim Cook being the CEO of Apple, right? He was the numbers guy. He wasn't the creative guy, yeah, or designing the things. But he was willing to learn and work with every department. And you have your talents. You have the people under you that can do the things that you don't know. And if you work with them and to ensure that the quality is there, then you're good to go. And I think with Bob Chapek, that did not happen. And that's why I remember, I think it was a CNBC report, but there was a report where the creatives went to the board and said, we're having issues with Bob Chapek. He's not working with us well. The communication is bad. He's not giving us the control that we need. And he's not giving us the budget that we need. And it's not working out, and they're freaking out, and the stock went down 20% after spending too much money on streaming, but yet the quality's not there. And then the next day, they fired.
Yeah. Yep. Tones, you're kind of more of a normie casual fan. What are your thoughts on what you would need for a Disney CEO?
So when it comes to like you guys, I always hear you guys converse about the previous when Bob Iger first was there, and then when he left and JPEG was there, and then Bob Iger was back. It seemed like there was a lot missing within that gap of Iger, JPEG, and Iger. So I think when it comes to going with the next successor, I think there needs to be a lot more thought and a lot more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Reach when it comes to who can possibly take over for him, because from what I mean, you guys know more about Bob Iger than I do, but he's done a pretty decent job when it comes to running everything all at once. But what do you guys think was the main reason why JPEG did such a terrible job? Do you think it was because inside Disney, or do you think it was producing or getting money for Disney?
I think my personal opinion with Bob Chapek is Disney's a studio first, and you have to be in that Hollywood bubble. You got to play ball with Hollywood, and Chapek didn't know how to do that. Chapek would be perfect running an insurance company or something, perfect. But in Hollywood, though, you need to be you need to sit at their table. And he was fighting with Scarlett Johansson, and nobody in the industry liked him, like nobody. And you're dead in the water. I mean, how do you run a company like Disney when everyone in the industry is like, oh, we can't stand this guy? I mean, he had a borderline mutiny in the company with a lot of his decisions on the social issues and all that stuff. And people were like, even people within like Disney and high ups and all that. So he lost it, I think, when Hollywood and even people at Disney started to rebel against him. He doesn't have that sort of like, I'm part of the in crowd kind of thing. And I know it sounds really superficial, but in Hollywood, you got to play the game. It's like politics, man. You got to play the game. And Chapek did not know how to play it. That's number one. But number two, the dude has horrible public relations skills, like atrocious. Like absolutely.
I agree.
I mean, you couldn't get worse than that. I mean, he atrocious.
Didn't he have the controversy where he's like, oh, Disney adults don't like animation as much, and people got upset over that? He was saying that animated movies are primarily for children, and adults don't enjoy them as much.
Yeah.
And and then people hated that, and ever since then, people just didn't like him.
Yeah, he has some issues, for sure. What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
So I think with Chapek, there was multiple problems. I mean, first of all, the guy had the heaviest lift you could possibly have. You are taking over the Walt Disney Company at an unprecedented time in history because it was COVID. And if you look at what he did that Disney kept doing, it was all park stuff. So he actually had some insight into the parks about how to make more money in the parks that he started to implement that Bob Iger kept in place. And Bob Iger still to this day hasn't taken those parks things away, even though some of them are wildly unpopular amongst Disney parks fans. But to OG's point, I think he's 100% right. So imagine this: you're coming into the company, you have a 10 out of 10 heavy lift for unprecedented times in the history of the Disney company. 2, you are not a Hollywood insider, as OG pointed out.
Right.
3, you are trying to implement a vision, but the guy who just left the position, who handed it over to you, doesn't really agree with you, and also is still the chairman and can still remove you. So if I'm going in, if I'm Dana Walden, or if I'm Josh Tomorrow, or if I'm an outside candidate, more likely if I'm an outside candidate, I come in and I go, if you guys choose me tomorrow, Iger has no office in this building. I don't want to see Iger on the premises unless I invite him to come in. Now, I'm saying that only because of what happened in the last debacle. I don't want to create any tension between me and the last CEO, but I'm behind the scenes going like, I'm going to shake Bob Iger's hand. I'm going to pat him on the back. I'm going to wear a cardigan with him when we go to the Disney parks next week. But what I am not doing is I am not adhering to whatever he wants me to do after he's left the position and been paid very well for it, by the way.
Yeah, he can't do the Manchurian Candidate anymore.
No, he can't do that. And so, and by the way, again, I love Bob Iger, but I just don't think that that's a good move when you're trying to entrust the company and entrust the vision of Disney to someone new. You cannot keep the old people involved and say, so what Chapek should have probably done is made a deal where Bob Iger was not a part of it. And also, if he was having problems with things he wanted to implement with the Walt Disney Company, he should have fired people left and right. And he said, you don't agree with me? You're out. You can't go complain to Iger. I'm not going to listen to that. You're gone. And put somebody else in place. Now, why did he fail so hard? Well, he wasn't given a lot of time to succeed, and I agree with OG 100%. His biggest issues were in trying to carry out some of the vision of what had been left behind by Iger that he didn't really fully understand. He did not understand streaming. He put a ton of money into streaming, just like Bob Iger had. He was carrying out Bob Iger's marching orders. And those marching orders ended up being very, very poorly conceptualized. Telling Lucasfilm not to do any movies and telling them to just go do stuff on Disney Plus is a horrible idea. But Iger said it, and Chapek kept rolling with it. And so I think that some of Chapek's moves by putting people who didn't understand studio dynamics in charge of studio stuff was also a really bad call. I think he was trying to make a break from Hollywood in a way, and he just wasn't able to do that. So yeah, I think that he had a really heavy lift. He tried to keep some of Bob Iger's things going, but he didn't really know how to do that, and it didn't really work for him. But he actually, I still think to this day that he was a good parks person. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but just keep in mind, a lot of the decisions that were made about parks that you hate were made not by him. He was the CEO. It was by the guy he put in charge of parks. So I just want to point that out. Something to think about. No,
you're right. And Tomorrow and Bob Iger, who are still there, it's pushing. I can't even believe it's pushing almost 3 years now since Chapek left. Yep. A lot of those things you didn't like are still there. So Tomorrow hasn't gotten rid of the app stuff and all this lightning, the paid fast pass stuff. It's all still there. Yeah. So, I mean, and that was the thing. The narrative back then was like Chapek is like holding Tomorrow back. Yeah. Chapek is like, putting the thumb on the scale and like, kind of pressuring and strong arming this guy. And if only Tomorrow could be free, he'd be this great guy. But it's like he's been free. It's almost been 3 years and he still has all that shit in there. So now I will agree with Epic Berserker though. Chapek had balls rocking that beard. He absolutely did, bro.
He for sure did.
So I have a quick question for you guys. So all that being said, it sounds like Disney is heavily, studio ran. Like it needs to be ran, particularly by the studio. Now, is someone like Kevin Feige that could step in and like, what's his name, Jon Favreau take over for what Feige's doing? Is that like a good swap that Disney can do to take over for Bob Iger? Like Kevin Feige take over for Bob Iger?
Here's the thing. The thing I love about Feige is that he checks all the box. I think he's a great creative. I think he definitely has that Disney sort of like public facing thing. Like Feige loves this shit, bro. And it's not just the Marvel stuff, man. I mean, I've heard him talk about Mary Poppins, bro. Like this guy is into like Mary Poppins, Disney animatronics. He's a nerd. I don't know if he has the business chops though. Like he can do the creative chops, and I think he can do all that great. I would feel completely safe with him like running the creativity for the company, like all of it, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, all that stuff. I think he'd be fine. But that business part of it, like what to acquire, what to sell, and all that Wall Street stuff, I just don't know if he has what it takes. What say you, Mr. Duck, about that's a great question by Tonez. What do you think, brother?
Yeah, you need to have the business side of things to go through. Just to go back a little bit, we had a business guy from Wall Street in charge of that in 2020 with Bob Chapek, and his name was Kareem Daniel.
Oh, sure.
And Bob Chapek was listening to Kareem Daniel, and he was pushing for numbers, growth, and spending money like crazy, and that's where the quality got ruined. And that's where, people like Kevin Feige got upset and said, we can't work with them. I don't mind if you have someone who's creative on the top, of the company, like the chairman of entertainment and media, to do it. But you still need to understand the business side, unfortunately, because there's a lot of numbers into it, especially with budgets, when right now they're trying to bring down budgets, not increase budgets. Creatives probably just want to use any money they can if they would. But that's the one thing you have to realize. And, Dana Walden is doing a really good job with that. She's doing really good with general entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. What are your thoughts on Feige taking over, Jay? Would you be okay with it, or?
So I love Kevin Feige. He has given us a lot of awesome movies. I think he can do a lot of cool things. If I were to take over for Disney tomorrow, I hate to say this. I don't even know if I want to say this publicly, but I guess I'll say it. I would probably clean house more so. To be honest, like, and here's why.
And
First
I was actually, before you say that, I was actually going to bring that up. Do you think the next person that comes in will do exactly that, just clean house?
Here's why I think they need to. It's not because that there's poor performance, okay? But what I think is that when you come in with a new vision, so let's just say that it's Dana Walden and Josh D'Amaro who are co-CEOs. Why are we all hesitant about that? We're all hesitant about it because we think they might maintain Bob Iger's vision, and we don't think that's a good vision moving forward. Okay, so let's just put that aside. Let's say that they have approached the board and they've said, look, we want to take over the company. And Dana's awesome with the studio. I'm awesome with the parks. Dana's awesome behind the scenes with the business. I'm awesome in front of people. Like, this is a great pairing. Let's team up and do this. Well, if I'm the board, I'm like, cool, what's your vision? I think that if I'm them, or if I'm whoever comes in, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Marvel isn't working right now, and I love Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige will go on to make amazing movies. There's no question about that in my mind. But Marvel's not working. I don't think I want Kevin Feige managing that anymore. I think I need a fresh new face in there. I don't think Pixar is working anymore. I love Pete Docter.
Yeah,
Pete Docter is one of my favorites, man. Like, I love the guy. If I was the next CEO of Disney, I'd probably be like, Pete, I love you, dude, but I got to move into a different category and look for different people to run this part of the company. I think that part of bringing in a new vision means being able to say, we need to. Let me give you a really good example of where I think this is going to work out really well for another company. When they finally decided that Zack Snyder's DCEU was not the thing that was going to take them moving forward, I don't know how many people have seen Superman. It is not Zack Snyder-ish in any way, shape, or form, right? Like, it is almost the opposite. In fact, my biggest complaint about Superman is that it is actually too much a response to being anti-Zack Snyder. But good on Warner Brothers for saying, we need a fresh vision for what this might look like. We think that James Gunn is the guy. And then he shows up and gives us a very different vision of what we expected to have. And he's going to use different creators to kind of try and achieve that vision. So I think that the thing that makes me the most nervous about Dana Walden, Kevin Feige, Pete Docter, Josh D'Amaro is I think that Disney needs a very coherent, strong vision, and it needs to be not in alignment with whatever Iger was trying to accomplish, which means I think that it needs to be different people, because it's really hard to get the same people to do different things.
Well said.
So So we're gonna fire Kathleen Kennedy, right?
And again, I don't even like the word fire or terminate, because I would want to celebrate all of these people. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard this story, but I know Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of heat. But you know the Darth Vader scene in Rogue One? That scene did not exist until I believe it was not the composer, because it wasn't Giacchino. It might have been the sound effects guy or something. He suggested that scene, and Kathleen Kennedy went, "That's an amazing scene. Green light that scene tomorrow." We don't hear those stories, right? Like we don't get those stories. But so I don't want to fire Kathleen Kennedy. I want to say, Kathy, we have to go in a different direction. I so appreciate you. Kevin Feige, I love what you've done for Marvel. I want to celebrate you as you leave, but I've got a new vision. I've got to try different things. The same things that worked 10 years ago, they're not working today. Pixar is not working today. Marvel is not working today. Lucasfilm is hit or miss today, depending on which day you show up. It's got to be different people. Like I got to have different people on my team.
That's true. That's a great point. Kevin Davis here says, now we're getting into some controversial territory. So Jay, you'll feel right at home now. He says Disney embraces diversity and inclusion. People don't care at all. And see, I have to push back on that, Kevin. I do think people want different stories to be told. I do think people want different cultures and what have you. I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, even with Michael Eisner, we did see that with Mulan and like Pocahontas and stuff. Like Michael Eisner wasn't all about just like white movies or whatever, right? So I do think the cultural stuff is very important. I mean, Moana is one of Disney's biggest franchises, and that's not a European thing at all. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I do think that inclusion, diversity is very, very important, both on and behind the camera too. You know what I'm saying? You want to have everyone in the room with you, sitting at that table. I think Disney's problem though is the way they go about it. It just feels very fake and pandery and weird. Like, I think it's good to have diversity. You want that. You want to include people. But the way Disney went about it, I think rubbed people the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Tones, in terms of like the inclusion, diversity? Do you think people don't care, or do you think that people want it, but like maybe just not the way Disney's handling it? What are your thoughts on that, brother?
Can you just give me a quick example of what Disney did bad on that? Because I don't know enough about it. Like what's an example Disney did that they didn't do a good enough job of doing diversity and inclusion? I think what you need to do is you need to have diversity and inclusion in your films, in your content. Absolutely.
But I think the issue though is when that's the sole marketing for the thing. Okay. Like I love Halle Bailey. I think she's gorgeous, number one, but I think she's an amazing young lady. But I think Disney handled the marketing of that movie really strange. Like just market the movie. I think when you lead with all this other stuff, I think that's where Disney gets in trouble. I have no issue with the movie. It's just the way Disney kind of handled the marketing package of that.
Almost like it was an agenda they were trying to push.
Yes. And people don't like to feel like they're being sold something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But what say you, Tone?
No, I'm right there with you. Like when it comes to movies and TV shows, if there's an agenda they're trying to push, I back off, because I don't like getting into politics. I'm one of the people who, if you guys talk politics, I'm just gonna like go on my phone and look at something else. It's not because I don't like talking about it. I do have an opinion on a lot of stuff, but the fact that I can't have a conversation with whatever side I'm on and come to a conclusion, it always ends up in an argument and I'm wrong and you don't know what you're talking. I hate having that conversation because when it comes to politics, it just always leads to that. You know what I'm saying? So I stopped talking about politics all together. But when it comes to like let's say movies, right? And they're trying to push an agenda, that's when I'm just like, I can't really do it, because it's their selling point. Instead of having the selling point of what the movie's about or what certain things are, what it's the story's trying to tell, that's what I look for, not an agenda they're trying to push. If that makes sense. I hope I made sense there.
No, 100%. What say you, Jay? Then we'll go to Seymour.
I think that Disney's biggest issue, to kind of reiterate what OG said, is that it became the predominant talking point instead of to what Tone said, instead of the quality of the material, right? And I think the healthy way of approaching any sort of organization that you're trying to build. Like, because let me give you an example, right? My next film, which I am filming at the end of August, is about thank you. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun one, but it's very, very simple. Okay, it's very, very simple because it's a bunch of it's sort of an interview format, interrogation format film about alien disclosure, and it takes place in 1966. Now I look at that and I go, I need to cast this in as interesting a way as possible. If you just show up, who are the most predominantly interested in aliens, particularly in the 1960s, of anybody else? Well, it's white males, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I just have all white males, guess what I have lacked the ability to do? Make my movie more interesting. Because if I have 6 people being interviewed and they're all white male, it just is automatically less interesting because they probably have less diversity of interpretation of what's going on. And that means that there's less conflict in the movie. I want more conflict in the movie. I want Tones to say one thing. I want OG to say another thing. I want Seymour to say a third thing. And if possible, they're all contentious with one another too a little bit because people will watch that more. So you need to have, there's a strategic approach to saying we want multiple viewpoints, we want multiple ideas, we want to butt those ideas up against one another. That's good, and you want that. And at least I want that. What I don't want, though, is what you both said, and I totally agree with it, is to be pandered to or to try and drum up interest in something because, like, so for example, Andor is my favorite Star Wars thing that's come out in the last 10 years. I love Andor. Andor is a brilliant show, excellently written, excellently directed. All of it's fantastic. One of the performers came out and said, "Oh, this is directly about the Trump administration and being too authoritarian, and that's exactly what the empire is like, right?" And even George Lucas has come out and said that the prequels were about Vietnam and how terrible I thought Vietnam was. The core human story there is that oppression in any form is bad, and if oppression is taking people down and killing them and abusing them, then we need to stand up and rise up and fight against that. That does not need to have a label on it of, that equals this person or that equals this person. It is the human condition. We want to rebel against oppression. You don't need to sell it to me in some kind of politicized way. I believe that as a human. I want to fight back against oppression as a human. And so that's where I think like Disney needs to make better contracts with their people where they say, look, if you can say whatever you want to on social media, but if you do, you're not going to work with us next time around. Right. Like, and they need to tell their creators, get to the core of the human story. Don't give me the politicized version of that story. Give me the core of the human experience part of that story, because that's what people are going to relate to. And that's, by the way, what Andor delivered. Just one of the performers had interpreted that in the way that they politically interpret that. Right. Yeah. It wasn't like it was like Disney was like, we're taking a stance on this issue. And so, because Disney wouldn't want to do that. Why? Because that means that you'd have a whole bunch of people not want to watch Andor because they thought it was too political or they wanted to. So it would just be a dumb business decision. So you should have more diversity. You should have more inclusion because it adds more perspectives. It adds more interest. It's more interesting. What you shouldn't do is go, I'm going to pat myself on the back because my film is so diverse and it's really important that that's the case. No, that's stupid. Tell a good story. That's what we want.
Right, exactly. We'll go with Seymour, and then we'll take one more comment from Jonathan, and then we'll head out of there. I know, Tones, you got a little bit of a heart out, so I want to make sure we get it.
No, we're good. We're good.
We're good. Okay, Seymour, what are your thoughts on this? Inclusion, diversity, all that good stuff, brother.
Some people say that's woke. I would disagree. Some people would say that, I would say that Disney's always been diverse from the beginning. All the way from Walt Disney, it's a small world, right? They've always been diverse. Oh, yeah. It's just that when it's forced upon you and the story's lacking, if just, it feels like, why are you doing this? we want a good movie. Where's the quality in that? Exactly. And it really shows when you force it, when the quality's not there. But Disney has been making great movies with diversity, right? We had Encanto, right? Moana, Lilo and Stitch it's about to make $1 billion, right? That has diversity, but it's not forced, right? It's a good quality movie, and when you have a good quality movie, people, people don't look at that stuff and say, "Oh, it's forced." No, it's just it's good. As long as you bring the good quality movie and not force us to, bring diversity, then that's really it is. Just a good quality.
Well said. Well said.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
To Jay's point, it's like if you make a storyline about something, you can go back in any history of whatever country, and it's probably going to relate to that, that part of history or something in the history. You probably will see in a movie moving forward because it's just life, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that they're not pushing that agenda of like a political thing or something that happened, you're not pushing that. That's what we want. We want to see what's so interesting about that story, what is going to draw our attention to watch or hear about what's going on in this movie or whatever the case may be. Like, you can't just look at history and be like, oh yeah, they made this movie because this happened to the Trump administration. It's like, what? No.
Can I give you a perfect example of that, Tony?
Please.
A perfect example is I've been digging way too deep into this Epstein list stuff, right? Okay, now let me tell you right now, this Epstein stuff mirrors a lot of what you and I love about Game of Thrones, right? There's a lot of similarities, right? And I can find those similarities and go, oh, interesting. I can't believe that human beings act in these horrendous ways and that people with power make these kinds of deals to live in these kind of environments. But as soon as somebody from Game of Thrones comes out and says, "Yeah, we're making this show because of the Epstein list," I'd be like, "What? Come on! Like, let me see that in the show. Don't force feed it to me and say, here's how you should have a perspective on this thing." I don't need to be told that. I'm an adult, man. I'll come up with my own opinions and then my own way of viewing things. Exactly. So it's just a completely different way of saying that. So yeah,
well said.
Is there do people actually come out and say like they don't want diversity and inclusion? Like they just want like a white cast and just play. Like, do people actually come out and say that? Just kind of curious.
In roundabout ways, they kind of do. Go ahead, Seymour.
I was gonna say yes, but I think it's a small minority. I don't think people outcry and say we don't want it, because you see movies like Lilo and Stitch hitting $1 billion. They like it. They don't complain about it. I think it's like people on X and people outside. They're in their own bubble, unfortunately, and they don't like it. But I don't think the majority has any issues with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think diversity is a beautiful thing, and I think it should be embraced 100%. Disney's handling of it isn't always great, but you want to have different stories. I mean, Coco is one of my favorite movies. I mean, Tones, you recently watched. I mean, it's a gorgeous film. Mexican culture, it's beautiful. Moana, one of Disney's biggest franchises. Polynesian culture. I mean, these are amazing. You want to have more stories, more perspective. It's just more interesting. I mean, how many times are you going to do a European fairy tale? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it gets old, right? You want to have different stuff in there. So, I mean, I would love to see like an Indian princess story or something really cool like that. I would love that. But I want to touch upon this question from Jonathan, because this is actually, I don't know if you gentlemen heard this, but there is an app in development. He's asking here, what are your thoughts on the Disney dating app in development? I think it's called Single Rider, which is, I think, probably the worst name they could have came up with. but
by the way, I would not be surprised if George somehow had his hand in this development of this app.
Oh yeah. And this is actually a topic I do disagree with George on, actually, and we'll kind of get into it here. And when we get George on again, maybe we can kind of go to bring this up and talk about it again. But for me personally, I mean, look, everyone's got their own personal stuff. It's, what they look for in a spouse or whatever. I don't know if I definitely wouldn't sign up for this thing. Number one, I'm not really a dating app kind of guy anyway. I'm more old school. Like, if I think you're cute, I'll come up to you and say hi. You know what I'm saying? In person. I mean, but I don't want like the person I'm with to necessarily be like another diehard fan. Like, the thing is that one of the big reasons, right? One of the big reasons why I like usually date outside of my race is because I do like learning about other cultures and other people, and I kind of feel like the same thing with the Disney thing. Like, I want the woman to have her own life, her own interests. I don't want her to be just like an OG55 clone. Like, I love Disney just as much as you. For me personally, I find that very boring. So now look, this is where the gray area, the nuance comes in. I couldn't date a person that absolutely hates it. considering what I do here on YouTube and that I do like going to the parks. I mean, she can't despise going to Disney, but I don't want someone who's like super diehard, like crazy into it, like I am, because I just find that I want her to bring her own thing to the table. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
No, I honestly think you might be wrong here a little bit, OG.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who love Disney but aren't completely into it, like knowing every parts of the park and the studio, who's the owner of this. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that love Disney, but they just love going to the parks. So
Okay.
I think you might be able to find. I mean, you said you don't like dating apps, so I'm not trying to force you to get into this, but you might be able to find a lot of people who might get this app and may not know a lot about the parks. They just love Disney. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. Absolutely, that's fair.
And there's a lot of people that sign up for what is that shit called? Like Christian Meagle, and they're not even Christian. So it's like there's gonna be a lot of people signed up for this shit too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What's it would be like me signing up for like Japan Cupids or something, right? my white ass. What say you, Tone? I mean, Jay.
Well, I think, dude. Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna have to jump in a minute just because I gotta get ready for another show. But I think that dude, how do I say this? I was talking to OG and George and maybe you too, Seymour, and maybe you too, Tones, on Instagram. But I was saying that I think dating apps are actually part of the problem, not part of the solution. And here's why I'm saying that. I don't mean that they haven't been helpful to people, but I'll give you a perfect example. And I told this in the Instagram chat we had too. When I was growing up, I was very much into shorter women. I married a woman who's 5'11", who's, probably like a half an inch taller than me, right? If I had gone to a dating app, I would have typed in there, oh, I like short women, or I like this kind of woman, or I like that kind of woman. My problem with America today is that we are so able to curate our own little experience that we have lost touch with other people's experiences. And to OG's point, when we actually start to talk to some of those people and interact with some of those people, we will find some things we don't like, but we'll find a lot of things that we do like. And we're like, wow, how have I thought this way my entire life? And now I'm experiencing this other person and they think a completely different way. And it's the whole concept of like sometimes opposites attract, right? And not always. Sometimes opposites are a giant disaster, but sometimes they're really great too. So I think that, especially for Disney, a corporation who is trying to bring more of America back together as opposed to making America more like divisive, I think it is actually a bad call to invest in things that are automatically somewhat divisive. And I know that other people will disagree with me on that because it's like, hey, look, I want to find a partner that does want to go to Disney. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, right? But what about finding the person who's never been to Disney who falls in love with it because they love you? Right? Like that's a different experience that you won't have. You won't have that experience that way. And so I think that we rely too much on technology to bring us together. And quite frankly, I would rather rely on the relationships that we have to bring us together. I don't agree with everything. Seymour doesn't agree with me on everything. And that's why I like Seymour. Tones does not agree with me on everything. That's why I like Tones. Right. I mean, and so it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, look, it's a better skill to learn how to adapt to other people and appreciate them for who they are. If we're going to say we want diversity and inclusion, we can't just be exclusive. That's like the opposite of the whole point. Well, so I wish they didn't have a dating app personally.
Well, and that's a great point you make there, Jay. Actually, recently I was at Disneyland. I met this girl there, and we actually hung out like for several hours that day. It was her first time at Disneyland ever.
No,
like she didn't know any of it. And it was like one of the coolest experiences I had because it was like, it was so new to her, right? It wasn't like another Disney person who knew the entire Haunted Mansion spiel and everything. It was kind of fun where she was like excited to see all this stuff because like, wow, okay, let's go on the monorail. Like, oh yeah, I'm down for that. Let's do that, because it's her first time. You know what I'm saying?
By the way, was this morning? Because you look tan as fuck today, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He does. He looks like he looks like he's been in Aulani sunny on the beach, man.
You know?
bro.
I'm telling you, bro. It's the Italian.
Pops up once in a while, dude.
It's the Italian in me, bro. I'm telling you, man. It's wild. But yeah, to your point, Jay. I mean, I think that there is something to be said about like having that difference where you have something to bring to something of value to bring to somebody else. Like, I'm into Disney. She's never been, so that's kind of a fun dynamic. But you also need someone who's open-minded, who's willing to do that with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole thing.
I will say real quick,
go ahead.
they need to implement not having pictures with you at Disneyland with your children on this fucking app too, because there's too many freaking weirdos where they put their kids on their, because Disneyland is, you know, you take your children there, of course, but they should have a thing where they don't put kids on the fucking apps, especially if it's a dating app. Because I don't know, I don't really have dating apps either, but I'm assuming Disney will have a ton of people putting their kids on their profile pictures, I guess. Yeah. So I hope they don't do that.
Well said, well said. And Jay, we'll have one more comment from Seymour, and then we'll head out of here because I know. Cool. Perfect. Seymour, what are your thoughts on this single rider dating app, brother?
I don't like the idea. I dated someone who was exactly like me, and it didn't work out. It was too boring. It was like, it was just because I'm a very timid person when I'm hanging out, and she was also timid. But yet there was a lot of sexual tension when it was very silent. But besides that,
I love it.
We knew it was not going to work out. So I feel like when you're looking for someone who's the same as you, when you're trying to date, at least for me personally, I don't want that, because people say opposites attract. For me, that's what it is. I'm a very timid person, but the attraction for me is a very bubbly, talkative person coming. And and I was telling OG in the DMs all the time. I'm saying, like, there's this video of this girl, and I'm like, yeah, she's very bubbly. I'm probably gonna marry a girl like that because she's very outspoken, bubbly. But me, I'm very quiet, timid, and I'm not gonna get that advice.
You need
balance. Exactly.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
But what if a social app? Because I know there is a theme park social app where people in the theme park community can socialize and interact.
That's cool.
I think, Jay, you brought it up one time. Because I actually messaged a guy and I told him, the creator of the app, to watch your videos, OG. And I just got an email today. He's like, go check it out.
Appreciate that.
You never know. Maybe you'll get special access. But yeah,
you never know, man. You never know. That's awesome.
But I like the idea for that. But for dating, no. Not for dating, no.
Yeah. No, I feel you, bro. I feel you. It's an interesting topic. I wouldn't mind doing a show with the Italiano and talk about that, because I think that'd be very interesting to get his take on that. I mean, I know his take on it, but I still want to have him on it and kind of dive into that, because it's very interesting how that whole thing is. But I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining today. I know it was kind of a last-minute stream, but a really great conversation today. And I'll start with you, Tones. Where can everybody find you on social media? This guy's, by the way, everybody at home, this guy's crushing it on TikTok. I love your TikTok lives and all that good stuff, brother. You're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun over there. We talk about TV shows and movies. So if you guys want to go to my TikTok, Tones_TV, we have a lot of fun on the lives. House of the Dragon and Night of the Seven Kingdoms should be out next year. I know it's a long time away, but it should be out next year. We have huge lives when it comes to that show. So a lot of fun at TikTok. So go to Tones_TV. Also go to my YouTube, Bad Thought Studio. We have a lot of movie and TV show conversations over there as well.
Awesome. Mr. Jay Sherer. Now, Jay, I do want to apologize. When you said 7, I'm doing California time.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, bro.
Time. Yeah.
Plenty of time, bro.
Yeah.
So
I should have clarified. Yeah.
I do apologize for that, but I'm glad you reminded me. But Jay, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah. How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. I'm breaking down movies, explaining movies over there, trying to learn more about movies, because as I make more of them, I want to be better at it. So I'm trying to study as much as I can. So check me out at How Stories Work with Jay Sherer, or check me out right here on Orange Grove 55 on the Story Geek Show. We got to do one on Superman. It'll be coming up, so stay tuned for that. But that's where you can find me.
There he is. And last but certainly not least, the one and only Mr. Duck. I love the fact that we finally got that Mr. Duck face reveal. I love the new set. It's amazing. Mr. Duck, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There he is. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Arlene, Epic Berserker, Disney Diva Gem, Kiki and Luca. Mr. Theme Park Wizard was in here? Hold on one sec. All right, we got Theme Park Wizard in the house. He's awesome. Check him out. He's a friend of the channel. Check him out on YouTube, all platforms. He does a lot of theme park content. Everybody make sure you show him some love. Tell him that OG55 sent you. Gridley, I want to thank you so much for all the great questions and comments today. Really great conversation. Kevin Davis, everybody, thank you so much. We'll do another live very, very soon. And until and our buddy Jason Hill. What's up, Jason? What's going on, brother? Until next time, see you later. Have a great one.